Hello, boys and girls. Good evening. We have gathered to finally announce the winners of the infamous old school death metal mixing contest. It took us a lot longer to do this, to announce the winners, but for a reason. And that was because you have sent in almost 2,000 mixes. So that was mind-blowing. Thank you so much. So we had a lot of work and a lot of fun, to go through all those mixes. It was, we were overwhelmed we didn't expect that. That's 2,000 people want to mix a death metal song recorded in 1997. But thank you so much. Thank you so much. And a lot of those mixes sounded great. So we had a hard time, choosing the right ones. And I already feel really bad because I would love to give a lot more prizes to a lot of other great sounding mixes. And I'm here with my good friend and colleague Warren Huart, because it was him and me who did this contest together at KOHLE Audio Kult and rate my mix. And we have another guy in the jury, and I'm very important than honored and excited. I'm sorry, Warren, but this is one of my teenage heroes. So he is a real heavy metal, thrash metal, death metal legend, and he played on some legendary albums in the 90s and 2000s. Cause of Death by Obituary and Gathering by Testament, just to name two of them. Really important albums. And he is also a great metal producer and mixer. And I'm very honored to have him on the show. So please welcome, straight from somewhere in Florida, Mr. James Murphy. How you doing?
You're way too kind, Kohle. Thank you. I'm doing great. It's pretty sweltering here in Central Florida. So we are luckily, our AC's holding up, and we're staying cool.
It's rather cold over here, and you can see that Warren is not at his studio, and that is, or you can explain it, Warren. Where are you and why?
I'll make it super quick. So Los Angeles, when it rains here, the whole city goes, "Oh no, what are we going to do?" So yesterday, my whole studio power went out, and now 24 hours later, still no power in the studio. Last night, my house power went out, and there's still no power at my house. So Tina at the village, thank you, Tina, let us use this room. So Eric and I drove over here, so we're at the village.
Awesome. Looks nice. Looks beautiful. Nice. So you hijacked the control room at the village.
Yes.
Nice. Okay, so you guys know that we have some amazing prizes. I think we had something like $70,000 worth of prizes or something. So maybe Warren can tell us something about.
So the prizes are ridiculous. As usual, our good friends at Audient are giving us a whole bunch of Evo interfaces, which Kristian did probably the best review of an interface I've ever seen, by the way. If anybody hasn't seen it, go to it. Last time I checked, you had about 40,000 views on that review, because what Kristian did is he just took it and compared it against a really expensive unit and did the kind of review that everybody should do, where you do a like versus like. Really awesome. Then, of course, our good friends at Austrian Audio, a whole bunch of wonderful microphones and headphones. Like, for instance, the first prize is an OC818, which is a $1,300 microphone with a $300 pair of headphones. EVE Audio giving us the SC205s, $700 speakers. Bogren Digital, our good friends at Bogren, are giving us all of their digital products. Leapwing, everything bundle, which is like $1,000. And probably the best prize for me is Oeksound, Soothe 2, and Spiff. The reason why I say that is I think Soothe 2 is probably plugin of the decade.
Yeah.
I love a lot of plugins, but every single mixer and producer, when I say what are your top 5 plugins, 4 of them vary from person to person. But everybody always says, oh, Oeksound Soothe 2. It's freaking ridiculously good sounding plugin. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Soundtheory Gullfoss, Submission Audio, which of course is our good friend Erman. Just incredible prizes. So yeah, rather good.
And we got quite a few winners, right? So
yes, sir.
The original plan was to announce 6 winners who mixed the song, and 3 of them get digital prizes, and 3 others, the 3 main winners, get like the hardware prizes. But we also wanted to announce 3 remix winners who remixed the song. Turns out things got a little, different. you will see. But the idea was that each of us chooses 2 favorites, and we will listen to those 6 mixes plus the remixes, and let's just see what happens. And I want to start with one of my favorites, and this one is coming from somebody called, I don't know how to pronounce it, but I think it is an Italian guy, and it's called Ricide Studio, and let's have a listen to that mix. Here we go. And that's a great mix. And what I was looking for in a way is like I was looking at both the overall balance of the instruments. That was one thing that was important for me. Then I wanted every instrument to sound right for this kind of music. So I wanted the bass to sound aggressive. I wanted the drums to cut through and the guitars to be aggressive. And, you know, this is death metal. I also wanted like that original 90s vibe to be there. So I didn't want people to fully sound replace all the drums, so it sounds like a modern production. And this guy did a really, really good job. The guitar sound great, the bass sounds aggressive, and I think the only thing for me that kept it from like being one of the main winners is that the drums sounded a little too triggered for my taste. So that's the only thing. But this is a great mix, and you're gonna get a bunch of wonderful digital prizes. So I'm gonna pass it over to James now. So he's gonna announce the next winner. So, but first, this question. So, what was important to you? What were you focusing? How did you choose the mixes, James?
First of all, I want to say that I feel at a little bit of a disadvantage to you guys. You guys are in cool studios, and mine is disassembled right now as I'm doing renovations. So I'm in a little alcove off my kitchen where I just practice guitar a lot, when I don't feel like being in the studio. I didn't consciously go in with any sort of preconception of what I would choose, but I think I ended up choosing a very similar type of 2 mixes that you guys did, which I picked one that was a lot more old school, a lot more natural tones, and one that was a lot more modern, that had a little heavier on the samples and a little bit more pushed a little louder and mastering wise, etc. So my number 2 choice, and this was hard, a mix by Raphael Solorio. I don't know where Raphael is from. He's got a very cool little logo there on his page, a little RS logo. But Raphael did a very modern sounding mix, very, the samples were very pushed, forward in the mix. And, if I had to say, any one particular reason why he was maybe second was, I think that the mix could have benefited from a little bit more velocity variation, or sort of any kind of scheme, whether it be multi-layered, velocity triggered sample sets, or even just like a round robin situation, where a randomization of some samples was chosen. It sounded a little too much the same, samples being triggered over and over again.
I felt the same way because the rest was so balanced. The guitar tone is great, really full and nice, and it just felt like he should have spent another hour going through all the velocities, especially on the tom breaks, right?
In particular, there's that one tom break that's happened shortly after 224. At 224, there's kind of like a guitar break that a tom break comes in, a tom fill comes in right over it, and it's really exposed. And this was a difficulty that I encountered in a number of the mixes that I auditioned, and I auditioned 42 mixes. So over and over again, especially where samples were involved, the fill just sounded unnatural, not very full, and some it just disappeared altogether, So
yeah,
I really liked that you could hear everything pretty well, but it did sound like it needed more variation.
Don't get us wrong, Raphael, you did a fantastic job. The mix
job,
sounds great. That was like we got 2,000 mixes. There's always something to criticize, but it sounded great. And I think one thing we also agreed on, James, was the fact that we wanted to have a grindy bass. And in both of our examples, as people will hear, that was something important, right?
That was a big point for me, because right off the bat, you're hearing a little, some exposed bass, and on quite a lot of the mixes, even mixes that were good, the bass, they didn't really do anything with it. Perhaps a little bit of EQ, maybe some compression, but it just sounded a little bit farty to me on a lot of things. Sorry.
And boring, right?
Sorry to be so graphic in my imagery there, but yeah, that's what it sounded like. And I like it when there's a little bit of growl. You got, that's how you handle a bass like that. Add some grind to it. And yeah, I like that.
Let's check it out.
Check it out.
And now it's getting really interesting, because James and me maybe have the same musical background, but Warren for sure hasn't got a death metal background. Have you? Or where are you coming from? No, so it was interesting to see. I gotta say that you actually picked mixes that James and me also could have picked, to be honest. But I hand it over to you to present your favorite mix, right?
No, what's interesting is to me, these are equal. And what's going to happen, people are going to stay tuned, is, well, I'll let the cat out of the bag. We didn't feel like there was enough really good quality remixes. So we're letting the cat out of the bag. So one of my two is now at number 3, which is Drazen, which is a very, very popular mix on Rate My Mix. On the site, everybody was loving his mix, and for lots of great reasons. But my other equally as favorite one, we're actually putting in at number 3 on the remix thing. We're just letting the cat out of the bag, because we didn't really feel like the remixes, like for instance, James didn't have a favorite remix. So I had one, and so did Kristian, of course. So we're going to take one of my mixes and put it in at number 3. So stay tuned for that. But Drazen, that we're about to listen to, was one of the most popular ones for good reasons. It's a very, very modern sounding mix. The thing that I kept hearing on all of these mixes was consistent good drum sounds. Lots of really, really good drum sounds, and lots of sample replace ones, but, really a really good job done of, evening it out. But the thing I kept feeling was like the guitars weren't matching it. There was very few mixes where the drums were aggressive and also the guitars. A lot of the time there was this really incredible drum sound, but the guitars were like really super dark. They didn't have any bite. They weren't ripping my head off. They weren't exciting. Now, it's not my genre, so I do defer to these guys for guitar sounds. But what I liked about Drazen's was it's definitely very modern. It's the most modern. My other mix that we're going to hear about in a minute is not as modern. It is, but it's sloppier. And to me, I think for you guys as well, it's like kind of that balance, isn't it? You sort of want some bad compression. Everybody's going to hate me saying that. Some kind of something that just kind of goes, rip your head off. It doesn't always have to be so, I was just praising Oeksound Soothe 2. It doesn't have to be like everything is dynamic EQ'd and multi-band EQ'd and so that there's not a single thing out of place. I think I kind of like it when there's a little bit out of place, things that sound a little dangerous. So Drazen's is definitely a top 3 mix for us, but maybe a little bit more danger could have been good. But
danger is a nice word.
Yeah, danger, edge. Yeah. But I think
edge, bite, vibe.
I think his mix for me would have been, I'd be fighting it for a number 1, which out of like 1,900 mixes, the fact that he's coming in at number 3 says a lot. It's an amazing mix. But the guitars have a bite on it, which I absolutely love. But if the bite had come down 5% and the drum bite had come up like 5%, I think it would have been, I'd been arguing it as being the greatest mix. And it's possible mastering could get into the center and boost some of that little bit on it. But it's a pretty darn good mix. And it's at number 3, it's winning a ton of prizes. And of course, very popular on Rate My Mix. Lots of the people that entered, I think, used his mix as one to beat.
Oh, okay.
So let's check it out.
Let's move on with mix number 2. And this one is coming from James again. He's going to present this one. And that guy has a wonderful name. He might be German. It's Gabriel von Seidlein. But it sounds like a name from a movie. And I think this one this one is the king of bass grind, isn't it, James?
It is. It is. I loved it. It caught me right off the bat. It's almost a grindcore to the point. And Gabriel, hey, Gabriel, I'm going to call you Gabe, okay? Hope you don't mind. All right, Gabe's mix is very old school, but it's just very well balanced, but there's not an emphasis. He may have samples. They may be there. Gabe, I don't know what you did, but the drums sound very natural to me. It sounds very much like probably the original drums. So if you use samples, I think Gabriel tucked them in quite discreetly and just used them to fill things out a little bit. He got them really well balanced. A couple of the key points, like the exposed tom fill there at around 226 or something like that. It sounded nice. It didn't disappear. Everything sounded natural, and man, the guitars were just raw, nasty, grindy.
Yeah,
everything's in your face.
It has that 90s vibe for me. That was what Warren just explained.
Absolutely,
a certain bite. It doesn't sound as nice and polished as Raphael's mix, for example, which sounds thicker and maybe better in a hi-fi kind of way. But this one has a certain edge that we all enjoyed.
Absolutely.
When mixing any type of music, but it's particularly a focus for metal mixers that are really just trying to get everything to be heard. It's a balancing act. It's a juggling act, and I'll say it like a thing my grandfather used to say to me all the time about other things, not mixing. My grandfather was not a metal mixer. Let me just clarify, or a mixer of any sort. It's kind of like trying to fit 10 gallons of shit in a 5-gallon bucket.
Yeah,
and you want that bucket to be full, and
Kristian, we're cutting that up. That's going on the TikTok channel. 10 gallons of shit in a 5-gallon bucket.
But it's so true. It's so true. It is.
There's only so much headroom, There's only so much useful frequency range, and so you gotta EQ, carve,
squeeze
carve things up and squeeze them in there
place,
just right. And all the mixes that you guys picked and mine, they'll all manage to do that in different ways. And for sure, when you go really heavy on samples, really like that eats a lot of your headroom there, and it becomes more of a you got to be very careful with bass management and things like that. I don't know. I think they both achieved the same thing in completely different ways, which is a well-balanced mix that's representative of Raphael's much more modern, and this one, this number 2 pick, Gabe's von Seidlein, it just does it with a very old school aesthetic that, hey, I think it's a no-brainer that's pleasing to me.
So let's have a listen to Gabriel von Seidlein. Here we go. And now it is my pleasure to announce the main winner, the number 1 mix. And this one is coming from Alexei Glembotsky. Congratulations.
Say that name when you're drunk.
I think it's the only way to actually get it right.
Oh,
Probably.
Yeah, maybe that way. This one is great. It has a great balance. Every instrument sounds great, and he managed to get the perfect balance between sounding transparent and modern and punchy, but also maintaining that natural vibe. I don't care what he did. I don't care what he did to the drums, but it sounds natural enough to me to, yeah, like whatever, like an old school metal thing should sound these days. So for me, it's the perfect combination. And I was turning it on. And I was like, there's nothing really wrong with it. I could find some details, but I don't want to talk about them now. But the overall atmosphere, the overall balance, it's all there. He didn't go like he didn't take the easy path to just sample replace everything. If he did, he managed to mix it in a way that sounds great. So that is the number one. And I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I love the mix. So
congratulations. Great mix. So, as I was saying earlier, we had a hard time finding 3 remixes that we all agreed were great. We did find 2, so they are going to occupy number 1 and number 2. And I must say, Kristian's one that he chose is fantastic, and he'll tell you about it in a minute. However, there was a mix, Tyler Schmaltz, if I'm sorry, Tyler, for not pronouncing your name right, which could have been in the top 3 in the main ones. And what I liked about it was, and I said to these guys, it was like, it felt like the way I would have mixed the song if I was mixing in a box. Now, obviously, typically I mix hybrid, and you all saw me mix it, and I didn't use any samples and use the drum sounds. This one, feels like there's samples in it, but what I like about it was like kind of things were pumping and a little bit overcompressed and sometimes a little bit bright, but never too badly pumping or too badly bright or anything. But what it ended up sounding like was really, really exciting the whole time. And I feel like sometimes, I said it earlier, with all these incredible tools that we have, is that we can get a little bit too anal, for want of a better term, where we start taking out all these frequencies. Oh, that's a little offensive, I must remove that. And mixes start to sound very safe. This one isn't. It's very forward, it's very angry and aggressive a lot. It's got a great bass tone. I know that you guys love that too. And it reminded me of something I talked about recently with Bob Clearmountain, who's my favorite mixer. And he says that he starts to think that mixers are becoming very safe now in all genres because everybody has these incredible tools, and just wishes people would take a bit more risks to be a bit more offensive and wrong. And I think this one has enough offensive-ness for me. And
danger.
Danger, yes. Danger, Will Robinson. All right, so
that's a great word. I'm going to use that word in the future a lot. I love that. Dangerous mixes.
Yeah, I think danger, because the word edge is just getting overused, isn't it? Everything in his life. I really liked that movie. It was really edgy. I really liked that album. It was really edgy. I loved that book. It was really edgy. It's like, really? Can we find a new word? Yeah. So, Tyler, we all loved your mix. And it was a tough one. Could have been in the other top 3, but we put it into this one because, frankly, we didn't feel like there was enough remixes for us. So I suppose the challenge is, we were just talking about off camera, you know, if next time we do one of these remix competitions, and really step up your game, because there's a lot of opportunity to get in the top 3 in the remixes, obviously. So let's check out Tyler's mix. So this is our number 2 remix, and it's Francesco Manazza. I feel like I'm not in the death metal genre, obviously, but when you say the words death metal, people think offensive and rip your head off. They're not thinking like, oh, there's no unicorns and rainbows in death metal. And this seems like the EDM death metal blend I would expect. If somebody's going to remix this, it should still be offensive. And it's not the best mix, but it's super bright, super aggressive. Like, which I suppose is the spirit of the original mix. Kristian, you remember the original mix? It's the brightest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And this has that same kind of like super bright. It's very chopped up. It's got a beautiful kind of like intro, which is really creepy, you know, and then it just goes into total offensiveness. And
yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's just like, it's getting more and more crazy the longer you listen, you know, and it's full of, fascinating, cool ideas.
I'm very curious about the new content versus original song ratio that we have here. Because it really does sound like a whole new song
remix.
To me.
Yeah,
that's a remix.
That's
right?
remixing, I suppose. But
I felt entertained and I felt surprised. You know, that's what I want from a remake. Going like, where is this coming from? What the fuck is that? You know, it kind of inspired me, and it was fun. Again, it's not the best mix, but this is about creativity. So that's why, we all believed Francesco was one of the two only people who managed to do a fantastic remix of this song. All right, everybody, and here comes the number one remix, and this one is coming from Maxime Dumas or Dumas or something. I don't know how to pronounce that. And what I like about this one, what makes it so special, is the fact that it is for me, it's a metal remix of a metal song. So a lot of the remixes were trying to take this into another genre, but this one is different because what this guy did is he added orchestral elements and turned a death metal song into something like a Dimmu Borgir kind of black metal song. He added a totally new dimension to this, brutal death metal, non-melodic death metal. He suddenly added chords and the chord progressions and just a third dimension to this, but it still sounds like metal, and moved it from death metal to black metal, and it's actually really good. So have a listen, and you know what I mean. What do you guys think?
I think it's stellar. I love this. This is everything that I like about orchestral black metal superimposed over an old school death metal song and pulled off just absolutely perfectly. This guy's a genius. And he obviously has some knowledge of, classical harmony. He understands, chord functions and functional harmony. So, and
Good
something
job.
about how to, to layer, orchestral sounds in a dense metal mix. Again, right back to the, 10 gallons of shit in a 5-gallon bucket analogy. He managed to get 12 gallons of shit into that 5-gallon bucket. Awesome, exquisite,
awesome
orchestral black metal shit, and it's amazing. I love it.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, I grew up. Everybody knows I talk about it all the time. I grew up on classical music, and I'm always very happy to hear people pushing the boundaries like this. And again, it's that sort of same spirit. It still feels dark and angsty and offensive and dangerous and yeah. To me, it kept the spirit of the song, but completely threw it, turned it upside down, and ripped out his innards and replaced it with robotics and violins and cellos and amazing.
So congratulations to all the winners. It was a lot of fun to listen to all those mixes. It was a lot of work too, but we really enjoyed it. And I gotta say thank you to Warren and James. And by the way, if you want to see James on this channel one more time, I would love to do a little interview with him and talk about guitar tones and mixing and other stuff. You can force him to do that. Just leave a comment and tell him to come back. That would be great.
Do it, James. Do it.
And in the meantime,
check out the KOHLE Audio Kult.
There he is. Yeah, check out KOHLE Audio Kult, my academy, if you want to learn something about recording, mixing, mastering, all kinds of heavy music. And I'm sure we will have some nice mixing contests coming up in the future again on Rate My Mix. And it has been a blast. Thank you all. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment. And once again, there have been many, many great sounding mixes, and it has been really, really close. So it is impossible. It's highly subjective. It's impossible to be 150% fair here, but we gave our best. And that's all for today. I see you in hell, motherfuckers. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.